Hi everyone, welcome back to my first actual video on the First Strike T15. So in this video I'm just going to cover the first thing you should do when you get your gun and how to oil it really. In my mind those are the most important things, and it helped me for sure when I got this, because I've only owned this now for 2 months, and going into my first game I had a world of trouble. And now so the last game I had I think was last month, and I had 0 breaks all day, no problems with the magazines or just absolutely nothing. Okay, so this is pretty much a stock T15. This is the stock barrel, everything else is stock apart from the hand guard. I bought that myself. That is, I believe, the First Strike CQB M-Lock or key mod or something. That only cost me about 40 quid, I think. One downside to it though, it is aluminium, so it's easily dented and scratched and things. But anyway, we'll get into it. The scope is just a Vulcan sight from BZ Paintball, I think, and a cheap riser, which has been the best one I've been able to find. I've tried to 3D print them and all sorts, but I managed to get this one off Amazon, and that's done really well. If you haven't brought the T15 yet and you were thinking about it, as part of the package that it comes with 5 magazines, which is the one I brought, it does not come with sights. It doesn't come with the sights at all, 0. You can buy, I think the original ones for the gun, I think from just Paintball, I think they're about £34, or you can just get these cheap Tipman ones from BZ Paintball for £10, which is what I did. They look fine, you don't really use them, it's just for looks really. We'll go through the first step when you get your gun first. So what you're going to want to do is take your gun apart into halves. I'm just going to get something I can poke the pins through. When you first get your gun, these pins will be very tough to do, or at least mine were anyway. But you want to get something, and there's 2 pins, I don't know if you can see them. There's 1 pin there to the top right of the selector switch and 1 in front of the mag well. You just want to push them through until they pop through a little bit. Oh, there you go. And what you want to do, if you can see, just pull them until they sort of make a click or whatever noise you want to call that, and then the 2 halves should just pop apart. Before you do that, make sure the gun's not cocked. I've not done it yet, but I've heard that can be a bit of a pain in the backside. Okay. Bear in mind, I do have an on-off ASA as well, so make sure, if you haven't got one there, make sure your gas tank is taken off. You don't want any trouble. Okay, the thing we want to take out the gun first, and this should be done the very first moment you get the gun, is this thing here. It's called the manifold, the lower manifold, I believe. And there's something in there called a recock screw. And what that does, if that's fully closed, when you shoot, no air will be coming back to push, I think it's the little slider back, which keeps the air from escaping, obviously as well as recocking the gun. So if that's all the way closed and you're shooting, you'll find that if you gas your gun up, and you cock your gun, gas your gun up, and you shoot, and it will shoot, won't cock back, and the air will leak. So you need to adjust that recock screw. So to do that, we're going to take that out. And there's a little pin there, right on the tip of my finger, a little silver pin. You need to get something that you can fit in that hole and push that pin in whilst lifting up the manifold. Now, I've not done this very often, so I'm at the same stage as you, but you should eventually be able to just keep going. I am using a very awkward tool because I'm using a nail. It probably isn't ideal. Wait, I must have something easier to use than that. You might have something in your Allen key set that will help. Although, I'm pretty sure none of them fit. No. Okay, we'll have to suffer with a nail, unless I can leverage it up a little bit. Put it in there. There we are. So if you want to do what I did, you can just put the Allen key in the screw hole at the back of the manifold closest to the gas tank and just leave it up as you're pushing the pin, and then it will pop off like that. You can just pop that to the side. I'm hoping you can see this. Now on the front there's the little silver screw, so not this one, it'll be the one there. When you want to put that up to the light, and you want to at least see a semicircle there, or a half moon. That's a good starting base. And what you do, once you gas your gun up, you keep shooting it, and you can go in and you keep screwing it in until you've reached a point where if you screw it in any more, it won't recock. And then you just pull it out a tiny little bit. And what that's for is basically just for better air efficiency. You don't want more air going back through if you don't need it to. At least that's how I understand it anyway. So you want to screw that out about halfway, or half a moon to start off with, and then go in from there. There's no point touching the velocity screw, which is the brass screw there, until really you've got to a field, or you have a chrono, which I don't, so I just wait until I'm there, which is nice and easy. When you're there, you can just adjust the screw. You don't have to take it apart from that. You can adjust it through the side of the gun, which would normally be there, a little hole just there. You put the Allen key through there and adjust it. Once you've done that, you can pop the manifold back in. You just place it over the pin, so the pin will be in the centre there. You just place it over like that, and then as you're pushing down, you want to push that pin back in. And then as you push down, you should hear a click like that, and there you go. That's done. So that's the very first thing that you need to be doing when you get started. And the second is where to oil everything. Yes, the gun comes oiled, but there's a few things you should know before doing so. One of them is you can't use diesel-based lube like WD-40, because I don't know the science behind it, but if you put 2 drops in your ASA and it's diesel-based, obviously diesel-based in vehicles is combustion, so it's compressed, and obviously using compressed air and diesel just bomb, from what I understand. So you definitely don't want to use that. You want to use stuff like something that's made for First Strike guns themselves, like First Strike operator tears. Yeah, operator tears. That has been a godsend, and I've had no trouble with that since I've got it, and it just works for the gun. So we'll start with oiling oiling these bits first. I should have left this out really, but first thing you should probably oil, and there's no really particular order here, but you're gonna want to oil the I think it's called a valve pin, something along those lines. But yeah, you're gonna want to oil it for sure. So here, after you've taken the manifold off, you should see a pin, this little pin here, and it moves around like a joystick. And what we want to do, at the very base of that pin, is a little ball, a ballish object that moves. So what you want to do is put just 2 drops in there, just push it to the side, put 1 drop in on the one side, boom, wiggle it around. But actually 1 drop's fine, maybe just 1 drop. I didn't realise how much 1 drop was, but yeah, once you put it in, just wiggle the pin around, get that nice even coat, and then that one's done. You can then put your lower manifold back on the gun, just putting it on the same way as I said before. You put it over the pin, push the pin in, push down, you'll hear a click, and that one's done now. So that is your lower oiled. I have never actually greased this trigger yet, but it might actually be a good point to make sure that's greased up. I've seen a lot of people on the Facebook groups, especially the full auto kits that come ungreased. They don't work properly if they're not greased, so you kind of need to do that. Let's just take this out. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do is on your top half, because that's your lower half done now, with the exception of the ASA, and I basically oil the ASA just before I start the game, because you want to oil it and then blank fire it or dry fire it to get the lube sort of you know, to go through the gun on its own. So we'll go on to this bit. Basically, all you got to do, push this back plate here on the back of the gun, twist it, and it will come off. There's a little pin, you'll see the guide which way to twist it. And then you want to pull all that out. Now I think on my rubber piece, I could be wrong here, but I don't know if you can see that, but it's starting to chew up. And I think that is to do with my recock screw being too far open, because I never did the thing I said at the start. I did it a few times and was like, right, I'm just going to leave it there, because it was already fairly efficient. So I'm getting probably about 140 shots, 140, 160-ish, somewhere around there. So in my mind it was good anyway. But anyway, once you took the cap off and the spring, you want to pull on the charging handle and then keep pulling, and then the bolt will pop through. You then need to grab it and then let go of the charging bolt, the charging handle. If you don't do that, it will just push back in, and then you can pull it out. And then if I can wipe this off, because I'm going to actually oil it. And all of this I've actually seen from the First Strike T15 owners Facebook channel. So I thought I'd pop it on here. So what you want to do with your bolt, you want to oil each O-ring. So you've got one there, one there, one there, one there, and one there. And I also put oil on that as well, just for extra measure, just to have it slide a bit better. So you just want to put one drop on each O-ring, one drop, 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 push that to the side, drop, and then just rub them in a little bit, just to get a little bit of coverage on them. And then once that's done, you just want to pop the bolt back into the gun, like so. Just drop it in. Make sure it lines up, and then push it through, and then you can pop the spring in, and then the cap, and then you just push that in, twist it to lock it in, and that's that one done. You can then pop the rest of your gun back together, and there's a little trick to this I've noticed. I spent a long time trying to figure out how to get these pins back in properly. Bear with me. What's going on here then? I think I'm just being a numpty. Put the top off. Is that one any chance? I don't know why that's not good. Oh, that's very embarrassing. So a little tip, when you're putting the gun back together, try to make sure the pins are actually pushed through and not, like mine were, closed. Rookie mistake. Yeah, so you push your gun back together, and the little trick is you want to push the grip down. So you want to push the grip down whilst pushing the pin in, and then it will just go in super easy like that. Same with the bottom one, push down, in straight away. The reason why you got to push it down is because that cap doesn't sit flush when you push it back in, it lifts it up slightly, which means the bolts don't line up. So if you push it down, it'll line them up, and you can just pop them on through. Okay, so that's the gun all ready. At this point, you should be pretty much ready to go for the day. And I'll quickly mention actually this. You want to try and screw the tank quickly. When you have the tank as well, a quick mention, you should buy one of these. It's called a fill nipple cover, and that's because that's where you put the air in. So if you're running along and that's not covered and you drop it in mud goes into there, you're going to have a hard time trying to get the mud out in order to fill your gun up. So that's definitely a necessity. Okay, the next place to oil is inside your ASA there. Obviously mine's a tad bit different to yours. You just want to drop 2 drops of oil before you play your game, and then when you go to the thing, you just dry fire it first before you put paint in. And what that'll do, that'll circulate the lube in the internals in there. And that's kind of what you want, really. But that's all there is to it for the gun, at least from my experience so far. Okay, then on to the magazine. Now this one, if you haven't used your T15 yet, I'm assuming you haven't experienced this yet because you haven't used it. So it's something you're going to have to be wary of, because on my very first game, I had barrel breaks, which is why if you've got a T15, defo use this, or buy one anyway, because you're going to need it. But anyway, let's get started. First thing you're going to want to do with your mag is you're going to want to wind it up all the way. That mag is not the right size. Okay, use my fingers. Another thing, this is a pain in the ass as well, winding these things up. So if you've got a 3D printer, it might be worth you printing a winder or something. That's what I'm planning to do soon. Just print a winder to make it easy. Let's just double check. Where's me? I could have swore that was the right size. Okay, I think that's wound up all the way. It sort of looks like it. I don't have the actual right size Allen key, so I think it's done. It won't turn anymore. Ow. Okay, so to get you wound your mag up all the way. The reason why we do that is because when you take it apart, if it's not wound up, the spring will just come out and you'll have a bit of nightmare getting that back in. But I will show you a good way to put it back in. It's actually really simple. But to get it apart, you want to pull on this clip here. So it looks that way. You want to pull that way. So it'll be a bit tough to start off with, but then it'll come off like that. And you don't have to use this to get these pins off, but I do. There's two little pins on either side, one there or one there, or not pins, catches. All you want to do is just use the end of that or a screwdriver and literally just lift it up so that the metal is just laying on top of that clip. Same with the other side. Sorry for the sniffles, I think I've got a bit of a cold, but don't worry, it's not COVID. And then push up on something, maybe not your plastic thing. Again, I've just pushed mine in. Okay, so yeah, be careful you don't do what I just did. As I lifted it up, it's pushed the pin down. It releases the mag, so just be careful when you pull that out. You might have the same issue. So you need to wind it back up again. If that's just happened to you. Okay, that's wound up this time. Once it's wound up, you should just be able to pull it apart. To pull it apart, you have to push that thing back, and it will come apart like that. And because you've wound it up, it should look like that. Nice and tight and compact, no mess, no issue. And then you can wipe the insides of your mags. And what some people have said on the First Strike group is leaving that wound up for, I think they said, about half a week to a week. And I think this actually makes sense, because on my first game I had a lot of paint. So where that sits, that first paintball was there, would always break. And it's from what I understand, it's something to do with the springs being a little bit too strong. So some people were saying that they were leaving them wound up for a week, which I think what they were saying is it might affect you shooting First Strike rounds. But for round ball, it's definitely, it's worked for me anyway. Like I said, the last game I played was last month. I had 0 breaks, no paint breaks, apart from user error, which was I basically put the mag in, it hadn't seated correctly. I then took the mag out ever so slightly, pushed back up again, and it popped the ball in the mag well. So that was the only break I had all day, and that was from my stupid self. Okay, sorry about that. My camera decided to throw a bit of a wobble. It got a bit too hot. Anyway, so as I was about to say, is if you're taking your magazine apart and you accidentally do that, and you're like, oh no, and you try and put it back together, if you try and wind it up and then try and put it in flush, you will have an absolute nightmare. Just trust me on that one. So the best thing to do is just ravel it around as long as you can get it, so it's not trying to pull it back in. Just hold it down on a flat surface like that, just to keep the back end down slightly, and then put the magazine housing on top, like that, and then you'll need to push the little thing, pull the little retainer there back, it'll snap back into place. All you've got to do then is pull it back, push the little ball through, take the slack, and there you go, that's in like that. You can then put all your stuff back on, the clip, and the magazine, and the bottom clip like that, and there you go, fully working magazine. Cool, happy days. I think that's it for this video. So thank you for watching, and subscribe if you want to see a lot more videos on the T15. I'm learning as I go, but I'm learning a lot, and I eventually want to be going to events and things to be able to be using this gun. Cool, thank you.